Yeah.
Okay.
You're right. There's always.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to go to the portion of the week we're holding in Parsha Shemeni. In your book, it's on page 200 and 206, 15, 216, 216, 215, 216. Parsha Shemeni.
Good morning, Boker Tov.
This was called don't be a good person. Be a godly person. It's a lot harder and better. Okay, so it's a beautiful parsha. This parsha, the parsha is called Shemini. It's the really starts off with the 8th day, the dedication of the temple. On actually, the Chodesh Nisan happened in that year, the first day of the month of Nisan, which is this year on Tuesday. This coming Tuesday is the Chodesh Nisan, the new month of the month of Nisan. So, which happened in the time of when the Jews went out of Mitzrayim. Actually, when they dedicated the temple, which was on a Chodesh Nisan on the first day of the month of Nisan. It's called the 8th day. The 8th day. When the day when it started the dedication of this temple, the 8th day was on the first day of Nisan. So that was really the first day the temple worked, was run as a Mishkan by Aaron, the high priest, etc. We have the whole beginning of the story, the passing of the two sons of Aaron, and we have the laws of kosher in this week's parsha. That's where we first find the laws of kashrus. What is kosher, what's not kosher in Jewish law. Torah law. And we have one of the most difficult laws in the Torah is the laws of purity and impurity. It's a separate law than the laws of kashrus, what's kosher, not kosher. The laws of what makes something pure and what is something that's impure. It's more the laws of purity, and impurity is more of a spiritual law. So from the story, even though in Torah law it affects the body, but it's more of a spiritual concept, not clothes, it's not clean or unclean. This is a pure or impure, doesn't mean clean or not clean. It means there's something that is pure, there's something that is impure, is like a death, and the concept of death of a person, death of of certain animals, their death, their carry on their body imparts impurity to those that touch it or come in connection with it. We go into the general law. I don't want to go into the laws of purity and impurity because there won't be enough time. But the law, there's a basic law that how does food become impure? And food becomes impure by needs to be able to become impure, besides coming in contact with a dead body or dead animal or a person that touched a dead body or dead animal. It can only become impure if it comes in contact first with the water. That's why I mentioned on Monday night that we learned over here. That's why we're going to all sit the Seder on Pesach. You're gonna wash before the karpas. Before you write Kadesh, Urchatz, you make Kiddush, Urchatz, you wash your hands, karpas, you eat karpas. So you take a potato, you dip it into the salt water, or like celery or whatever you have, an onion, whatever you eat for karpas at your Seder table. And why do you wash your hands before you dip it? You dip this into the water because this law. Because when you dip something into water, you take a potato, you take a cookie, you take whatever you take in life, and you dip it into water, you have to wash your hands first because it now becomes accessible for impurity. So that's why we don't make a blessing, because it's self-assumed we're all impure anyway. It's more a symbolic act today because impurity we're in general impure anyway. So washing your hands is not going to really help you in this concept of impurity, but to show the law to express the law of what can become accessible to impurity. For example, today, in a practical way, in Jewish law, for example, if you're going to go eat a pickle, right? You can take the pickle out of the jar. There's two ways to do that. Either you wash your hands and take the pickle out of the jar, or you take a fork and eat it with a fork, the pickle. But since the pickle is in juice, in water, so now the pickle is accessible, has become accessible, called it over here hechsher, which he translates is actually wrong. Hechsher means you have prepared it, you have made it, gave it the capability of impurity. Okay, and because it came in contact with the water. Once it comes in contact with water, so for example, if you're eating coffee and a cracker, and you want to take the cookie and you want to dip it into the coffee, you really need to wash your hands first before you dip that cookie into the coffee or into the milk or whatever, because it becomes accessible the second you take the cookie and put it into the water. Now this cookie or whatever you're going to put into the water, this cracker, now becomes accessible to impurity. Again, I don't want to go through all the laws. I'll just tell you the law. And we're not going to go into the spiritual meaning of this law at all. We're not going to really talk about this law. But we're going to bring this law, he just brought up this law for the next concept, because the Gemara has an argument, honey is also a liquid. It becomes a liquid. First is in a comb. It's in the comb of whatever a honeycomb is. And then ultimately it turns into a liquid. So the question is, the last part of the Gemara and the whole Talmud and all the books of Talmud, at the end the Gemara has the argument about this question: honey. When does honey become a liquid? This is the last argument, Beisham and Beis. When does honey become a liquid? That's really what. So a honey is a liquid. So for example, if I have honey. I dip something into honey, dip the apple into honey. So that's the honey is a liquid. So now the apple, if it was never in water before, usually it wasn't water because you washed the apple. But if you didn't wash the apple, you just take the apple, you dip it into honey. Now the honey has become a liquid. The honey is a liquid. So now the apple becomes accessible to the aspect of impurity. So the question is, when does honey become a liquid? That's the argument in the Talmud. The ending of the whole Talmud ends off with this argument. Like any you learn Talmud, all Talmud's arguments. This is the last argument in the Talmud. As he's going to bring it. Yep. Yeah. So that's the law. So that's it. So the law of the Torah. Why do you bring it down? Because the basic law of the Torah is in front of you in text number 1a. Is the law that we mentioned. Right? It says, and all foods, page 216, 1a, all foods that are commonly eaten are fit to, you see, they're fit. You brought them into a capability to be fit, become contaminated after water or liquids that are commonly drunk in any vessel come upon it. That's the verse. That's the verse in the Torah. That's the verse. So the verse says, any foods that come in contact with liquids now become capable of becoming impure. That's it. That's the pasuk, right? So the Rambam writes, you have in Maimonides, text number 1b, that's the general law. All foods edible to human, such as bread, meat, grapes, olives, and the like, can become impure. That's the law. That's a separate law, that they have the accessibility to become impure. It does not become impure unless it's first touched by one of the 7 liquids. This is called, he called it kosher. Hechsher means you prepared it. That doesn't become impure, but with the water. The water makes it accessible. The water makes it acceptable to become impure. It makes it a receptacle, in essence, for impurity. As the verse states, if water is put upon a seed, or afterwards a seed is contaminated by the impure dead creatures, it is impure. These are the 7 liquids that render edible foods kosher for impurity, right? Talking about kosher foods, water, dew, oil, wine, animal fats, blood, and honey.
You know, Rabbi, I'm trying not to disturb you, but what's?
Yeah, but so then why would you want to do that?
I mean, you wash every food that you eat.
Right, so all foods today will all impure anyway. But at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, which a Mashiach is going to come, and there's going to be a temple again, then you're going to need to know these laws. These are laws of the Torah. You have to you'll have to be careful to not to make something impure.
They were all impure because the temple isn't a temple.
No, because we're all impure. Because if you went to a funeral, you were impure. Right? You went to a funeral. If you ever went to a funeral, maybe you didn't go to a funeral. But if you went to a funeral and you were in the room, like the funeral room, and there was the body there, you became impure.
Even a cemetery.
Doesn't help you. That does not help you washing your hands. You went to the cemetery, so all these things make you impure. And in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, you weren't allowed to go to the temple if you were impure.
So it's not it's a spiritual thing.
I said to begin with, we're talking about a spiritual thing. We're not talking about a science thing. You cannot put this under the microscope. You become pure. So, for example, even till today, for example, a Kohen is not allowed to officially go to a funeral because he's not allowed to make himself intentionally impure. He's not allowed to do that. Even today, if he's impure, even though he's impure, most probably even a Kohen was probably in his life, whatever, if he went to the funeral of a loved one, which he's allowed to go to, but once he went to a funeral, he became impure. He cannot become pure only through the red heifer, which we read last week in the Torah, which we don't have today. So therefore, really, we're all impure. We're all impure people. If we went to a funeral, etc., or we were in a room that there was a dead body, and even you don't go to a funeral. If you're in the hospital and you're walking in, somebody died in the hospital, etc. So the laws of impurity are very difficult and very interesting, very complex, and this is not the class for it. But
Is it explained some more?
sure, 100%. But it's hard to explain the laws of the law, the general law, because it's spiritual law. You don't see the difference between a person that's pure or impure. It's not something that is detectable. It's a personal law, and it again, it's very interesting law. You can learn the laws of purity and impurity of foods, of humans, of vessels. These go into different categories, and there's many. As I said on Monday night, we touched a little bit on it. There's, in the Jewish law, there's the father of impurity. There's a first impure, first degree, second degree, third degree, fourth degree. There's many levels of impurity. And that's why there's a mikveh, for example. So a woman also becomes impure in Jewish law. When she has a period, she becomes impure, goes through a cycle, she goes to the mikveh. And she becomes, so certain things, even today, we still live with the laws of impurity, and certain concepts can take away impurity from a person. And a mikveh is one of those concepts. So the Torah law, it's not the Torah says a mikveh can take away impurity. No. We're not talking about humans. That's talking about food. Don't mix the two things. Don't mix the food. Don't mix the two laws. So I'm just trying to tell you that we still, even today, don't have a temple. We still live with the laws of impurity, especially for a woman that goes to a menstrual cycle. She has impurity, and she goes to the mikveh, and she becomes pure from that aspect. Even though she doesn't come pure from the dead body, she might have gone to a funeral, but she still becomes impure. She can become pure from a certain levels of impurity. Because as I mentioned, there are many different levels of impurity. So too, men also go to mikveh today. So men go to mikveh every day. Because the mikveh takes away a certain level of impurity. But that's a separate issue. We want to talk about the Torah law in this week's Parsha, which the Torah doesn't talk about the impurity of actually next week, Tazria. There, the Torah goes to the impurity of man. The Torah talks a little bit over here in this week's Parsha about the impurity of vegetable food. Okay. Next, the Torah goes into the laws of of man, of how way a person becomes impure. Very intricate laws. Okay, this concept is going as follows. So it goes into the laws of right. There are set the liquids that make a food or any kind of thing that you eat, edible foods that becomes accessible to become impure. That means I can bring liquid on the thing and never bring it to impurity. I don't bring it to impurity. So therefore, we wash our hands, for example, because hands itself carry a certain level of impurities, and by washing our hands, we take away that level. So that's why we wake up in the morning. What is the first thing we do? We wash our hands. In Jewish law, you have to wash your hands until it's time. Make a bracha, because that washing of the hands in the morning take away a certain level of impurity. Washing of the hands itself. And again, we're not talking about cleanliness. We're talking about you went to take a shower. It has nothing to do with the cleanliness or uncleanliness. It's a spiritual concept. Person goes to sleep at night. He has a certain amount of death that comes upon him when his soul leaves him and he goes to sleep, and the soul comes back. There's a certain level of impurity that's within his, that leaves, it's still in his, so to say, in his hands, and he washes his hands in the morning. You should wash your hands in the morning.
So it's really symbolic.
No, this is not a symbolic thing. When you wash your hands in the morning, you make a blessing. It's not symbolic, the symbolism. It's a total concept of impurity. There's a certain level of impurity that brings on a person when he wakes up in the morning. And the washing of the hands is enough for that level of impurity. There is a concept of washing your hands in the temple. They used to wash their hands before they did the service. Washing the hands is also a certain level of taking away impurities. And that's why we wash our hands before we eat bread. And we make a blessing, because that, it takes away a certain level of impurity when we wash our hands.
This is all in the Torah what Moses said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all the Torah. So we have the concept of taking away, as I said, washing our hands is taking away a certain level of impurity. Going to the mikveh is taking away another level of impurity. Ultimately, you need the red heifer, that takes away the ultimate level of impurity. And that we don't have. So we still have washing our hands. We still have going to the mikveh. We don't have that level of taking away total impurity because we don't have a temple. Okay, so therefore, most of the laws of the Torah, what talks about impurity and not becoming impure, is mainly, besides a woman and besides the simple levels of purity the man has, is to go into the temple, really. To go to the temple. Therefore, even in the times of the Bet HaMikdash, a regular Jew could be impure because he doesn't have to go to the temple. It's not an obligation to go to the temple only three times a year. So there were 3 times a year that every Jew had to be worried about these laws in a very practical way, because they had to go to the temple for Passover. So that's why we read last week the laws of red heifer to remind us that you got to get ready to go to the temple. You got to get ready. So they did that throughout history. A month before Passover, they taught the laws. They said, listen, if you're impure, you better do what you need to do to become pure, because you have to be in the Beis HaMikdash in a couple of weeks. Right? You got to go up to the temple. If you got to go up to the temple, you got to be pure, because you're not allowed to go into the temple impure. A kohen has a whole different rule, right? Kohen is a rule because the Torah says a kohen is not allowed to be impure. So that's why the kohen is not allowed to make himself impure today, even today. Not allowed to go to a cemetery, etc. Okay. So now let's go to the last text, the last Mishnah, text number 2. Is the last Mishnah of the whole book of the Gemara, the whole book of oral law. This is how the way the Gemara ends off. What point does honeycomb become susceptible to impurity? Right, because the Rambam writes the honey is a liquid that makes something impure. So at what time does that happen? When does that happen? School of Shammai says when it began to smoke the bees. How do you get the bees away from the honey? You got to take the honey. Right? Even in times of the Gemara, they took smoke and they got the honey, they got the bees away from the comb. The school of Hillel says when you break up the honeycomb. So Beis Hillel says it doesn't become liquid until you break the honeycomb. I'm not a bee guy, but you have to. They take the honeycomb, they put it today with the way they do it. You put the honeycomb, they break it, they put it into a what do you call it? Thing that spins, and the honey comes out. That I saw that you can Google. So that's the way they get the honey. So Beis Hillel says until you break the honeycomb and you start to bring out it's liquid, it's not considered liquid. Okay, that's the ending of the Mishnah. Again, it's not important to go into their argument. That's not the point of this. Everything the sages looked at everything in a very the way everything is located, the way everything is situated has a lesson to us.
So, Rabbi,
yes,
honey is actually an excrement from bees.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a minute.
All right.
We're going to go a little bit into bees over here. We're going to go into the bees. So, why we're going to go into the bees? Because the sages say that if the Gemara ends off, the whole tractate of Jewish oral law ends off with bees, it must be a lesson to us why the Gemara would end off with bees. I mean, out of all the subjects in the Talmud, we have to end off with bees. What are the bees? There must be something that the Gemara ends off, the whole oral law of the whole 630 commandments and all the Talmud and everything that the 6 tractates of Talmud end off, of Mishnah, end off with the laws of bees. There must be a reason. Why would the Torah end off that way? And what's the motive, in essence, of the reasoning that the Torah would end off as follows? And the truth is, it's a fascinating lesson that you're going to learn, and maybe you know it already because you can imagine what we're going to say over here. The lesson that we can all learn from bees, because there's a big argument, there's a big philosophical debate in Jewish philosophy of what do we do? Why do we do all these mitzvahs? What do we do? What's the motivation behind doing what we do as Jews, or even as humans? Why do we do things in a certain way? What's the reasoning behind being good people? Why are we good people? Why? For what reason? What is the reason? What is the purpose even being behind a good person? Why should I be a good person? What do I get? What is what?
To become kin of God, because you're only here for a short time and then we go somewhere else.
So what again? Is it for me? Is it for you? Or is it for God? You can have 3 things over here. Why am I a good person? I'm a good person because I should be a good person. I'm a good person because I'm living in the world with you. If I'm not a good person, then you're gonna suffer. Or it's a good person because God, or it's all 3 together. Why should I be a good person? Why should I do Torah mitzvahs? You're gonna come to the Seder night, and that's the question of the Chacham and the Rasha. The righteous and the wicked have the same question. The tzaddik and what is all these commandments? What is the gain out of this whole thing? Like, who's gaining out of this? Am I getting brownie points? Is God getting brownie points? Why am I doing all these mitzvahs? What am I gaining? Why are we doing this? Right? You're gonna ask him, what is all these commandments? What? Hello? We should go to a lawyer and we see in the document, what's the good, what's the bad? What are we gaining out of this whole thing? What is the gain out of this whole Maisa? And it's a good question. It is a valid question. And as you know, it's a valid question because you see it's in the Agada, that the Agada brings out these questions, and and what's the answer really? It's a great question. Sometimes the answer is not as good as the question. And that's why we struggle with this. Even the concept of God, I'm talking between man and man, and man and God, right? So I'm not always good between man and man. I wish I was always perfect between man and man. I'm not so, because whatever reason, right? I don't think that I'm obligated right now, right? I don't think that, or I think it's, a lot of people say, oh, I've been all about others. It's time for myself. I've heard this 150 times. Now I have to think about myself. Like until now, you weren't thinking about yourself. You were thinking bullshit only about others. And now suddenly you have to think about yourself. And it's, what do you say to a person? Don't think about yourself. You should, 100%. It's ethics of a father. It ain't anili mili. If I'm not going to think of myself, who's going to think about me? So you should have always thought about yourself. And Mustafa, you were always thinking about yourself, but okay, that's a separate issue. But the truth is, how do I look at it? So this was a philosophical debate, argument, and it was based on the Torah. You look at the verse in text number 3, in Deuteronomy. The verse says it seemingly openly: observe all the commandments and all the edicts that I command you today for your good. Yeah, the pasuk says it openly. God says, I need you to do commandments, Pasha. It's for me. I gave you these mitzvahs for me. I need to have it. I don't need it. I'm God. I'm infinite. You're gonna put on tefillin today. It's gonna change me. Are you serious? I gave you the mitzvah tefillin for you. It's for you. It's all for you, honey. That's what the pasuk says. What?
No play on words,
Honey, honey, right? So God asked, that Maimonides says, God asked nothing of you. That's for his benefit. Only for your benefit. For it's good for you. You're good. David says, I know what you're right. God is like a parent. He created us. He says, I know what's good for you. This is good for you. Yeah. Or in Deuteronomy, you have the next verse in 5a. God commands us to observe all these laws. It's a pasuk in the Torah. It's Avena Hashem Lasikol HaChukim Liyidas Hashem Lakem, to revere God for our perpetual good. Latayv Lanu Kol Hayamim, all these days. And over here, the verse adds another wording over here, beautiful wording. And to live on this day. What is the meaning of these two expressions? Number one, it's all for you. It's good for you. And not number two, it's perpetual good. It's not as good for you today. What's going to be good for you? It's good for you in the world to come. So it's good for you as you live as humans, and it's good for you as you go on as souls. It's good for everybody. It's good for now, it's good forever. So God says, I'm giving you something not only good for the moment, good for the present, I'm giving you everlasting good. Right? That's the verse. So Rabbeinu Bechaya, look how he says it in 5b. Rabbeinu Bechaya was one of the great commentators of the Chumash. Lived in the 12th century. If you see, I don't know if they give you. It's very nice. They give you the history of the rabbi. This is a clear statement that a reward awaits us in the afterlife. This answers with finality the question that has bothered young people for generations. Now they can believe, understand, and know that the observance of God's commandments is rewarding for both body and soul. God says, it's all for you. I have no gain. I got no benefit. I got no gain. All for you. And that's your choice. It's for you. You don't want it. Don't take it. Don't take it. That's why it says, before Matan Torah, God asked every nation, do you want it? They didn't want it. The Jewish people said yes. They wanted it. The physical reward is promise of the Holy Land, which includes all benefits of life in this world. That's the ultimate reward. Eretz Yisrael, coming of Mashiach, and the land of Israel. It also includes a promise of serenity and prosperity for its land that flows of milk and honey. That's why God says that the ultimate reward in the physical world is a land that is holy, a land that has both spirituality, physicality, all your needs. Right? A country that has everything you need in it. Right? The Eibishter created a country that has everything. You can go skiing and you can go sunbathing and you can have milk and honey. It's a machaya, the land of milk and honey. The spiritual reward implies for our perpetual good. That's it. The Torah mitzvahs is for the physical, it's for the spiritual. It surrounds everything in your life. This is an important principle. Remember it always. Ben Bachaya writes. He says he explains the verse, says this is something you should remember forever. It's not something you should have this in front of your face. To realize that this is a great gift the Eibishter gave to each and every one of you. That you can simply take upon yourself this way of life, and you're going to have good in this world and good in the world to come. That's beautiful. Yes.
So we're supposed to do good, and for this life and the hereafter. So just using Israel and the Jewish people. So if we're doing all this good, yet we're despised, we're disliked, we're
Right.
on.
Correct.
We're the chosen people. So
Right.
I don't
Because it's a good question. It's a very good question. And that Rambam, by my man, he says, maybe the Eibush is waiting for you. Maybe the Eibush is waiting for that Jew that's not doing good. Didn't put on tefillin today. God might be waiting for that. I don't know. God might be waiting for that Jew to start keeping kosher. To start doing what he's supposed to do. I don't know. That's the $1 million call. What is God doing? That I cannot answer you. If I would know, I would do it ASAP. But I don't. Okay, those are some mysteries. You might say are all Jews doing Torah mitzvahs? No. Are all Jews in Israel doing Torah mitzvahs? No. So that's the problem. But on the other hand, is God waiting for all? The Rambam says no. That's why I said one. The Rambam says no. God's not waiting for all. He's not waiting for all. He's waiting for you. That's it. He's waiting for you. He's not waiting. You cannot look and say God is waiting for all. God is waiting for Zalman Bucket. That's it. He waits Zalman Bucket to do the right thing. What? What's the matter?
No, I'm now reflecting upon when Lot asked God,
Yeah.
and God said, "Show me one person that is good,
Right.
and I will not destroy
Right.
the
Correct.
city."
Correct.
So you're explaining to me, there's a couple of guys that.
I'm sure there's a couple of guys today that are good, and that's why God does not destroy the world, because there are always a couple of guys that are going to be perfect in this world. Thank God.
Say one.
So he said 10. That was Abraham said 10. But there's thank God good people in this world that keeps the world in existence. And hopefully everybody in this room is good. So yeah, we're good people. So Baruch Hashem, but we got I don't know, there's something still missing in the puzzle. There's something still missing in this puzzle. What it is, I can't tell you. And who it is, I can't tell you it either. Who can accomplish that? So I hope that every one of us can try their best, and I should try my best to accomplish that.
It's like the Wizard of Oz.
What?
Keep on going.
but we have to realize. We have to realize that that's a cumulative kind of a concept also? That ultimately, it's like building a building. I mean, until you finish the building, it's not a building. You can't yet live in it. But every brick, every stone, every nail that you put in, everything that you put into this building ultimately brings about the completion of this building. So we're trying to build something. We're trying for a couple thousand years to build this concept, this aspect in the world, and we've come along. As was the expression, we've come a long way, baby. We've come Baruch Hashem a long way in many aspects in our life, right? So like 100, 200 years ago, if you told the Jew in Russia or in Poland, you told them that the dream of living in Israel is something that would happen, they would say, you're in a dreamland. You're talking fantasy. Today, it's not that way. Thank God, it's transformed in 75 years into a Jewish country, into a strong country, into a beautiful country. So we took something that was a dream of 200 years ago, even less than 200 years ago, and we showed that it's not a dream, right? That this dream is not a dream. It's not a dream. So true, so too. When I tell you the Beis Hamikdash will one day be built in Yerushalayim, you tell me right now it's a dream. Like the Jew in Russia who said you had too much to drink 200 years ago. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. A Jew has certain beliefs and certain yearnings and certain focus in his life for history, for thousands of years. And we're getting there. We're getting there. We're slowly getting there. There's no question about it that we're slowly getting there. There's a lot of bumps in the road, and there's a lot of struggles, but it's still getting there. I heard a rabbi say the following. He said, when somebody asked him, like, how do you see the future? He said, the way I see the future is I think about if I was talking to my great-great-grandfather, and I told him that, the Jews live in Israel, he would say, like, that's impossible. Oh, and they're fighting a war. That's impossible.
Wish it wasn't possible.
Oh, that America, whatever is giving money. You say it's impossible. These are impossible things. This has not ever happened. This is not going to happen. You're dreaming. You're having a nice dream. Go back to sleep. So it's not impossible. It's not. We're living. We just have to not stop that dream. We have to realize that the dream, that all this, what we are talking about, all the things that the people didn't believe, they prayed every day. In their prayers, they said it every day. The prayers was written 2,000 years ago. The prophets talk about almost every Shabbos. To prophesize the concept of what Israel is going to be is happening in front of our eyes. All the prophecies are happening in front of our eyes. So we just got to realize that we can't give up, and we need to do what is right. We need to do what is right, whether between man and between man and God. And they're both equally as important to a Jew, whether it's between man and between man and God. So here, in essence, the point over here is that really that according to what we're holding right now, is that it's about us. It's about us. It's about us living a life of that will be good for us in this world and good for us in the world to come. And therefore, this, if you want to go a step further, text number 6.1a. Why the Medrash asks the question, why would God care if we slaughter from a neck or from a nape? Why would the Eibishter care how you slaughtered something, how you shechted something? Take a knife and give it a zetz. That's it. What does it make difference? Rather, the commandments are only given us to refine us. So Nachmanides explains this. Each commandment has a reason and a purpose that rectifies our human nature. So it's not only that'll be good for us. Being good for us goes a step further. If you want to be good, you have to refine yourself. You have to work on yourself. And each reason, purpose rectifies our human nature in addition to the reward that we receive from he who commands it. The commandments are not intended to benefit God. Rather, they are intended to benefit us. They shield us from toxicity, caustic beliefs, shameful traits. They also help us remember God's wonderful miracles and know God. Observing mitzvahs is like refining silver. One who refines silver does not act without purpose. The purpose is to extract all the impurities, base metals from the silver. Similarly, God commandments uproot negative beliefs in our hearts, teach us the truth, and empower us to remember it always. Our sages offer the mitzvah of shechita, slaughtering, as proof. Slaughtering is from the neck. Doesn't produce greater glory or benefit to God than slaughtering from the nape. Rather, the purpose is to habituate us to the path of compassion, even as we slaughter.
What's the name?
To the back. Here's another example. Does God really care if we eat kosher food that the Torah calls pure, or unkosher food that the Torah calls impure for you? That it renders us pure of soul, wise of mind, and perspective of truth. So that's what we say, purity and unimpurity. Are you pure? Are you impure? The Rebbe still wants you to think about purity. He wants to bring into your lexicon the concept of purity. What it means to be pure? Does he really care if you're pure? I mean, no, he wants you to think about these things. What is pure? What's impure? Is there a difference between purity and impurity? Today we have the struggle between what's good and evil. We have this struggle. We don't know what's good and evil anymore. It's sad. You can almost say that good is evil and evil is good. I don't know. Everybody's screaming their own thing. What is good and what is evil? I don't know. Almost, I believe I do know, but almost in the world today, what is good and what is evil? What is good to you is evil to me. What is evil to you is good to me. So therefore, in essence, what I say, you live you and I'll live me. And you don't get involved with me and I don't get involved with you. That's how we live in the world today. That's it. We cannot talk to each other. We cannot have conversations anymore. We lost the ability to respect one another. Why? If I think you're evil.
God is everything, and God is infinity, is infinite. How can anything be impure?
Because God's infinity, this world's not infinity. This world is finite. So God is infinite. But ultimately, God came into a finite entity. So in the aspect of God is pure. But the way God came into this world is pluralism, and it's good and it's bad.
You say that God is everything.
I agree God is everything, but the way ultimately in the world, that's why you look from above to below or from below to above. So in this world, there is good and there's evil. There is good and there's evil. But that's the reality. There is good even though it's God. There's good and there's evil. There's good. And the answer is no, because God has a purpose in good and he has a purpose in evil. The Eibishter, there's no difference. To God, there's no difference in good and evil. To me, there is a difference in good and evil.
God is everything. You're saying there is good and evil. There's duality.
Well, I'm asking a question. Is there evil? Answer the question. Is there evil in this world? There's no evil in this world. So a murder, answer the question. Don't talk to me like, oh, so a murderer should be let out.
There's only God.
Answer the question. So according to you, so therefore murderers should walk around. And rapists should walk around. and pedophiles should walk around. Why not? God is good.
Just not
And
saying what you-
No, because again, because God made because you're not listening. No, because no. God ultimately created a world. The world has good and evil. Has nothing to do with God is good, self-understood. But in this world, there's good and evil. And evil, God says in the Torah, evil needs to be taken away from the world.
Part of the evil is that.
That's why good came to the world, to take away evil from the world.
Why did God-
So evil needs to be eradicated from the world.
Part
You
of-
have to eradicate evil from the world.
Part of the evil is that we don't take enough effort to rehabilitate the murderer or the rapist.
Once he murdered, he's not rehabilitated anymore. Okay? He needs to be taken away from the world.
Yeah. until
That's
we
it.
rehabilitate.
No. That's what the Torah says. When a person murders, he has done the ultimate of evil and he needs to be taken away from the world. That's it. That's its rectification.
Take away his limit.
Eliminated.
Okay?
That's it. Needs to be eliminated.
Not a guy-
That's it. He needs to be eliminated. That's what Torah says. And we followed God's, that's what God says. Evil needs to be eliminated. Before it becomes evil, self-understood, we should help him not to be evil. We should educate them not to. But once a person does an evil act that is unrectifiable,
You murder and murder.
yes, because of his evil.
Then you're-
Because of his evil. You don't murder a murderer because he killed.
Then why does it?
You
say-
murder a murderer because of his evil.
Then why does it?
That's why you murder you don't murder, you kill a murderer.
then
You're
why-
not murdering a murderer. You're killing a murderer.
Then why does it say in the?
No, it's not a thin line. It's a clear line. You have to know the difference between evil and what's not evil.
An
And that's
eye
it. You
for
have
an
to know-
eye.
An evil act is an evil act.
Then-
When you justify an evil act, then you're justifying evil.
But then why?
You
does-
cannot justify evil.
Then why?
That's
does
an eye for an eye.
the entire, whatever, Sanhedrin or whatever, the 70 believe that there should be capital punishment, you cannot execute, because there's some good in everything.
Correct. But ultimately, you're right. But ultimately, the majority, if there was 670 and one of them said he was not evil, he was still put to death because you have 69.
70 said
Correct. So everybody has good. But ultimately, this evil is unrectifiable. And even though all the good he has, and that's why the Gemara, that's why the Torah says, even if he's a high priest and he's doing the service in the temple, if he murdered somebody, he needs to be taken out. Okay? You can't say, oh, what do you mean? He's the high priest. He's the one who's helping everybody. He's the guy who's the savior. You know what? He murdered somebody. He needs to be put out. Why? Because his evil overcomes all the good that he has in his life. When you do an act, certain acts of evil, then you don't deserve to be in the only way to have a world is not to justify evil, or not to think that you can't even forgive murder, right? You can't forgive murder, right? How do you forgive murder?
Hashem
No, but-
created good and evil.
Correct.
Hashem also created free will.
100%.
You're telling us that Hashem wants us to eliminate evil.
100%. Why
Why was it created in the first?
Because he wanted you to eliminate it. It's as simple as that. He wanted you and your free choice to get rid of evil. That's it. Why did the Eibishter create? You don't have to go to that. You don't have to go all the way to the concept of evil in yourself. In Chassidut, you learn that God created you with a godly soul and a mystic soul. It's in yourself. It's in your own being, in my own being. I have within me good and the opposite of good. Now, thank God I'm not killing anybody, etc. No, chas v'shalom, chas. I shouldn't want to kill anybody. But I have in my level, it's a concept of negativity. It's the opposite of good. And I need to ultimately work through this concept. I need to ultimately work through this concept. That's it. And then it's my avodah. Now it's my free choice to work through this concept, not to justify, say, oh, you know, this evil is God. So therefore, that's it. I can live with it. Just like I have good. God is bad. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any common sense. That's not correct. That's justification of evil. The point of evil is to either certain evils can be rectified, certain evils can be developed, certain evils need to be taken away. even yourself. Ego, anger, for example. The Gemara says anger needs to be taken away from existence. In your own existence, you got to eradicate it. You got to get rid of anger. You can't have anger. You can have frustration maybe, but anger needs to be taken away. The Rambam says you got to go 180 degrees the other way.
You get rid of anger.
Not an easy thing.
You get rid of anger by embracing anger, not by being angry at angry.
No, you don't be angry at angry. But you get the Rambam says you get rid of anger by going 180 degrees the other way. Don't be angry at anything. Embrace everybody. No, that's it. I agree with you, but you got to get rid of anger, and it's not a
murderer is the same thing.
No, you don't murder a murderer because of you're not listening to me. You don't murder a murderer because of they killed somebody. You murdered a murderer because of his evil that he has, and he cannot take that back anymore. Understand? Once he murdered somebody from this world, the evil that he has cannot be transformed. That's it. He's done an act that he cannot bring back. When you steal from somebody, you can pay him back. When you take his life, you cannot bring him back. You know, I remember many years ago, used to be this. I used to listen to talk show hosts on my radio. His name was Jack Cole. I don't even remember him. He was one of the guys. So he was talking. The Jews. Why don't Jews start forgiving what the Germans did? Why don't Jews forgive? So it's the first time in my life, and the last time I ever called a radio show. I was sitting in my car. I called him up. I said to him, you know, my grandparents were murdered in Germany. I cannot forgive. They need to forgive. They didn't kill me. They killed them. They're dead. They can't forgive anymore. So I cannot forgive on my grandparents' murder. How do I forgive on my grandparents' murder? It doesn't make sense. I cannot forgive on my grandparents. They have to forgive. Where do I have a chutzpah? Imagine you somebody hurt you. I say, I forgive him. So what? Do you forgive him? He hurt you. He didn't hurt me. I cannot forgive on somebody else's murder. And the Torah says you cannot forgive on murder.
So you don't forgive.
Cannot forgive him. What?
You don't forgive for God.
Let God forgive. What? I'm God. I don't forgive for anybody. I cannot forgive.
You keep saying
If God wants to forgive, he'll forgive.
So if I forgive, I don't forgive.
If God wants to forgive, he'll forgive. You cannot forgive on murder.
That person is part of God, as you're saying.
No, but his evil cannot be forgiven. That's it. He chose to do an evil act. Cannot
forget, so it never happens again, and I can't.
That's a separate issue. Don't forget. But don't forgive. You cannot forgive.
You
can't forgive.
You shouldn't hold a grudge.
I don't hold a grudge. I just don't forgive. I'm not holding a grudge. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going out to war with them. I'm not doing anything, but I don't forgive them. I don't forgive them. What they did to my grandparents and my uncles, my aunts, I will not forgive them. That's it. Why? Not because I'm not a forgiving person, because I can't. That's my point. I can't. How can I forgive on something that was done to somebody else? I shouldn't forgive on anything that's done to you. I'm not the one to forgive on something that was done to you. You should forgive. If something was done to you, you should be the forgiving person. I should be the forgiving. I should tell everybody, you be forgiving. No, you need to forgive. I can't tell you to be forgive. I can tell you from today to tomorrow, but ultimately you're the one who has to forgive, not me.
But let the grandparents kill him.
What?
But let the grandparents kill him.
No, therefore, what do we say? What do we say? We don't say anybody. We're not there to kill anybody. We say God should kill them all. God should take revenge on them. I don't taking revenge on anybody. We say that God should avenge the blood of thousands and millions of Jews that were murdered through history. Millions of Jews, not only the Holocaust, millions of Jews were murdered through history. Yes. Right. I'm not only forgiving them, I'm not forgiving anybody, and God should avenge their murder. So I'm not doing anything. I'm not physically doing anything. But I'm not forgiving either.
You said that God, and you said God created evil so that we can eradicate it. If you don't forgive,
no, I have to eradicate.
You're not forgiving God.
No. God said to eradicate it. God says to eradicate it. God's not, you can't forgive, you have to eradicate it. You have to get it, you can't forgive it. You have to eradicate it. You got to eradicate it. Yes.
Okay, I want to say, I read
Guys, we're getting off the topic. Yes.
Shimon, Simon Wiesenthal
Yeah.
wrote a marvelous book about this issue.
Yeah.
Because, let me take 2 minutes from you, because
Hurry up quickly because you're sitting here on
at the time of the Shoah, there was a Nazi in the hospital, and he asked a nurse that she should bring a Jew to him so he can ask from this Jew forgiveness.
yeah.
And that Jew was Shimon Wiesenthal.
Yeah.
And he said, I cannot forgive this man.
Okay. See.
I mean,
I agree.
all
I agree.
these people-
I agree. You cannot forgive what other people done to other people. It doesn't make sense. And that's what the Torah is very worried about that. The Torah says, you don't have, that's your compassion is in the wrong place. Your compassion is not good. It's not a good compassion. Because a person that does something evil, I'm not talking again, stealing you can always pay back. You hurt somebody with your mouth, you always can ask forgiveness. Murder, you cannot ask forgiveness for murder. Especially talking about murder. You can't ask forgiveness. The person that is murdered needs to give forgiveness. And that's up to them. Okay, let's go further. We got off the stage. It is true that 2 commandments, so is true to all commandments. Shaking a lulav, sitting in a sukkah, laying tefillin, putting on tefillin, which is a sign, a reminder God extracted us from Egypt, are not, I'm on text number 6, page 222. For the glory of God, they are Him being compassionate towards us. It's all intended for our good, not for God's good. The purpose of every mitzvah is to refine and cleanse us from all negative thoughts and shameful traits. Also, look at text number 6c, page 224. Also, when a Jewish army lays siege to a non-Jewish city, we are commanded to leave one side of the city exposed for any citizens who wish to escape. We are even commanded to avoid causing pain to animals that cannot speak. Do not slaughter an animal in the sun on the same day. Similar commandments to send away a mother before removing the eggs or the chicks for the nest. Even with respect to vegetation, we're instructed not to destroy a tree wantonly that has fruits. All of this for us, the servants, to implant true beliefs and good, proper traits in our souls to refine us for our benefit. Self-understood. If we live in this world, if evil would put down its weaponry, then we wouldn't have weaponry, right? If they would put down their weaponry, we wouldn't have weaponry. We want to hurt anybody. Any normal person wants to hurt anybody. Any normal person wants to destroy anybody. Even a person that has evil intent, we wanted them dead. No, who wants that? Nobody wants that. No normal person wants that. And we should be refined people that don't want that kind of stuff. Even though, especially Jewish people, are surrounded by people who want that kind of stuff. Who want that kind of, even to people, you see people here in America demonstrating, etc., want that kind of stuff. So they're demonstrating the Jews should stop, but they can continue. They can continue. They can continue to have desires and wants to kill you, and you have no rights. You have no rights to protect yourself. God will protect you. No, the Abishah says you need to protect yourself. But ultimately, the Jewish person, or the humanity, I'm not talking about Jews, but we're talking here about Jews because the Torah was given to the Jewish nation. 600 commandments are given to the Jewish nation. And the way the sages looked at it was that not only is to give you reward, it's simply to look at every commandment, how it means to become simply a better person. how to simply become a better individual. What means pure and impure? What does that mean in the concept of my life? That I should be pure, I should be more pure than impure. My thoughts should be more pure than impure. My speech should be more pure than impure. My actions should be more pure than impure. So let's go into a beehive. We're very late. Let's go into a beehive, okay? You ready? Text number 7 there. We're going to learn about the bees now, but the birds and the bees. Honeybees. This is fascinating, but you also can look this up in Google. And you can watch a movie, on YouTube. Honeybees are divided into 3 groups called castes. They are a single queen bee, several hundred male drones, and thousands of female worker bees. The queen bee is the mother of all bees and keeps her task with dogged consistency. She will lay about 1,500 eggs a day, each spring and summer. She is groomed for the role, having been chosen as a young, promising, but an altogether average larva by her assistants, the legions of drone bees, and fed a secret potion known as royal jelly, a special super rich superfood, as we might call it, produces is in the heads of the worker and nurse bees. It's amazing. Drones, true to their names, don't do much, but wait by the chance to mate for the queen. Only one drone in 1,000 will live to do so. The worker bees do more than coddling the queen. They are the rank and file workers of the hive, doing the lion's share of the daily colonial chores, including feeding the drones of the growing brood, keeping the hive temperature steady, preparing the hives for food source, pollen-rich bee bread, and to our fortune, the liquid golden itself, honey. For all the hard work of the worker bee in the 6 to 8 weeks of her life, having flown a total of 1.5 times the circumference of the earth in her travels, ends up producing a mere, this is amazing, a 12th teaspoon of honey. In fact, all 12 teaspoons add up to a lot of honey, thank God, because we got a lot of worker bees, thank God. In New York and New Jersey combined, there's about 70,000 bee colonies producing over 3 million pounds of honey at the value of nearly $2 million per 2018 USDA honey report. Honey production in the entire United States last year totaled 150 million pounds of honey at the value of $330 million. Look at the avodah this bee does for 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. She slaves for 6 to 8 weeks for a 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. What does
Goes
she get
around the
for it?
world.
Gosh.
Goes around the world.
The honeybee colony, look at that and bee, is organized society of 3 adult castes, queen and worker and drone. Each caste has certain responsibilities for the preservation of their hive. Queens, who are responsible for producing and laying eggs, live for an average of 2 or 3 years, but have been known to live to 5, Baruch Hashem. That was their queens produce fertilized eggs that hatch into drones and male bees. The main purpose of the drones to mate with the queen, and their lifespan relates directly to this task, right? Because the second they mate, they die. If a mature drone successfully mates to the queen, he will die soon after the mating flight. If he's unsuccessful in mating flight, he will be thrown out of the hive. The poor guy. Ejected from his hive at the end of the active summer season and will eventually die in the cold of starvation. Look what's going on over here.
Life is cruel.
Look what's going. Life is cruel. Look what's going on. We all sitting there eating honey. Dip the apple in the honey. How many bees gave their life for us to sit and enjoy honey? How many bees gave their lives? How much work was given? And what did they get for it? You paid them? You thanked them? They're dead already. They died in 8 weeks.
They're
6 to 8
dying.
weeks. It's
They're dying.
unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon. So therefore the Gemara says 8a. Rabbi Yehuda, son of Rabbi Shimon, said, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Levi, we are like honeybees. As a honeybee works only for the benefit of its queen, so do the Jewish people. Perform all commandments and good deeds only for the benefit of the Father. That's it. Even though it's all about us, but the truth is, we're honeybees. That's it. Benefit of God. He's the queen bee. It's the benefit of God. It's not a benefit of us. We live in this world, Baruch Hashem, more than 6 weeks, but 60, 70, 80 years. You're up. That's why the Gemara ends. That's why now you understand that the Alter Rebbe says in text number 8b, says, we cannot be our own ultimate purpose. Despite the wondrous benefits we derive from the commandments, we don't do them for ourselves. We do them for God's glory, so that God can rejoice with his handwork. We study Torah and observe commandments. God experiences supernal delight, a celestial pleasure within himself. What God's pleasure, I don't know, but because I don't know God that much. But the Torah says he sees pleasure. I do it for that. I do it for the Eibish's pleasure. Oh, the Eibish says it's not about me. It's for you, and we say it's for you. I'm not doing it for any other reason. It's for God. That's it. Whatever God wants, I do. Finished. Yes, it's true that we see boundless worlds in this world, the world to come. We know that. That says in the Torah. We can't argue with that. Our sage says a single moment of delight in the world to come is greater than all the pleasures of this world. So we're going to get all the pleasures that we have in this world that God promises both. Trust me, is not in comparison to the pleasures you're going to have in Gan Eden. Nevertheless, in paradise. Nevertheless, this is secondary to giving God supernal delight. That's secondary. Our mission in life is to do what God wants us to do, to be the servants of God. The supernal delight he experiences within himself. So the Rebbe ends off, and we're already long over delayed. This is why the final Mishnah discusses the beehives and honeycombs. That's what the Rebbe says. That's why we ended off with this law. It's because it's imperative to serve God for the sake of God. Is taught to us by the comparison of the Jewish people to the bee. And that's why it's important to us to realize that even though God has promised us all these wonderful things, we do it because we love the Eibishter. And why is it important to us to love the Eibishter? So in text number 10, the Rambam writes, one who serves God out of love occupies himself in Torah and mitzvahs and walks in the path of wisdom for no ulterior motives, not because of fear that the evil will occur, nor the order to acquire benefits. Rather, they do what is true because it's true. And ultimately, good will come because of it. That's it. Not about me gaining anything or losing anything. That's when we struggle, because we do good, and then bad things happen to us. Right? Why do bad things happen to good people? Because the answer is, nothing bad happens to a good person. If he's good, he's true, he will ultimately be good to him. The Eibishter doesn't, his expression, God doesn't stay Baal Chayv. He doesn't stay somebody who owes to anybody anything. If you're good, it'll be good. If not now, later, it'll be good. That's life. Life is good and bad. But if you don't lose your truth because of bad things that happen, you're living in a world of good and bad. And maybe a bad thing will happen. You want to be by those who say nothing bad, it's good too? I wish you're a tzaddik, that everything is good. But I'm not a tzaddik, so I see bad. I'm far from it. And I see bad, but I realize, you know what? I need a key to my truth. Because if it's only about good, then it's about a give and take. So here, Torah promised me, do everything right and it'll be good for you. It's not good. I lost my job. Tragedy happened. Like, what do you answer to those questions? Here, the Torah says, I'll give you everything and everything will be good. And then tragedy happened. I did everything good. That's why you always have to have that we do good because that's what is right. Because that's what is right. And what is right, when you do things good, that's what is right, true, it's emes, because God says so, and that's the truth. And therefore, a good day, a bad day, a successful situation, unsuccessful situation, doesn't change the emes. Doesn't change the truth. Because if it does change the truth, then then you don't have the truth. Then it's not truthful. And therefore, after all the Gemara ends off with a B. Because the bee does the job because that's what it was created for. He doesn't say, wait a second, what's going on over here? I'm going to work in 6 weeks. I'm going to rebel. The rebellious bee. I hereby quit. I hereby quit. A chutzpah. That I'm going to live for 60 weeks, work like a behemoth, not get paid. And that's it. No, I hereby quit. No, not one bee has done that. I don't know. I'm not a bee guy. Maybe there was. I have no idea. But we don't know. There hasn't been. We don't know of a bee rebellion in history. That would be a great movie. But you know what I mean? Why? Because that's the way they're created. That's what they do. That's their truth. They have no dilemma in their truth.
How do they know that?
What?
How do they know that?
Because they behave.
Very good.
But there's
I don't know.
But there's
It-
no commandments
Because
for them.
that's it. Isn't it amazing?
There's no-
Isn't? Because they don't have choice. They don't have choice. That's the difference. That's the trick. That's what we learn from the bee. That's why we.
The Mashiach bee came already. We still have to wait for the bee.
Well, 100%. That's why you're 100% right. Right now you have free choice. Now you understand the difference before Mashiach comes, after Mashiach. Once Mashiach comes, you can be like a bee.
So free
Oh, you
choice-
live you live
free
forever.
choice is an evil. We need to
No, the beauty is free choice. That's why the beauty is because we're not bees ultimately, we're humans.
But it's not a bee.
We're not a
because
bee.
We can't really.
It's a lesson from the bees. It's a lesson from the bees. Don't become a bee. It's a lesson from the bees. That you know what? That a human being should be like a bee. And the Gemara says you can learn from animals a lot of good lessons. You can learn from animals a lot of beautiful lessons. From the ant, the Gemara goes through a lot of animals that we can learn beautiful lessons from. In our way, not that we should become the wolf or the bee or the lion or whatever, but we should learn from them. And what we should learn, over here we're learning from the bee, that the bee tells you that you know what, life is not only about what you gain. Life is why you were created.
Wow.
And who created you? Just like I was created a bee, you created a person. And you, just like I was created to give honey and to serve the queen bee, you created to serve the Eibishter. That's what you were created for. Wake up, smell the coffee, and stop worrying about everything else. Start worrying about more what you were created for.
What do the bees do? with
Let's
the
just finish this off. Number 11. The Rebbe ends. When a Jew serves God out of love in such a way that they do what is true because it's true. There's no ulterior motives in their service. Their only thought animating their service is the desire to fulfill God's will because it is true. That's what it is. It's true. It's emes. This is what the Eibishter, this is why I was created. The Eibishter created me. If I believe in God, God created me. Then God created me for a purpose. And God didn't hide that purpose. That's the beauty of Judaism. That God didn't hide. It's no secrets. There's no secret. Everything is written out perfectly. There's no secrets. It hasn't been a secret in 1,000 years. We know exactly what God wants from us. Exactly. And if we can just take that, the problem is we say, who said God wanted this? Right away we challenge it. We challenge it. We believe in God. Who says God wanted this? So that's our child. That's again our free choice. That's what our choice keeps on coming back to bite us. So there's a positive in free choice, and that is that you're gaining something about it. That's what we said in the beginning. Think about yourself. It's going to be good for you. Whether it's going to be good for you, a good life, better person, brownie points for the world to come. It's also part of Judaism. It's also part of Torah. That was the beginning of the whole class.
It's supposed to be good for a reward.
You are. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. A child is brought up in a way, rewards. That's it. You're not going to give him any rewards. You're not going to do it. So if you want to, that's also part of a life. Being a child is also part of life. It's not the end of the world. You give rewards to a child. But as an adult, you realize that's an immature little kind of relationship, and reward and punishment. Or you're not going to clean your room. You're not going to play in your game. Okay, so now they clean the room. They should clean the room because they want to clean the room, because that's where you need to live as a normal human being. You need to clean your room, and nobody should clean it for you. But a child cannot comprehend that, so he has to get the reward and punishment. That is the way it is, because he cannot decipher. He doesn't have the capability to understand good and bad to its essence. He understands the punishment and reward. He gets that. He gets the time to watch TV and not the time he cannot watch TV. That he gets. But as he matures, hopefully, he comes to realize it's not about reward and punishment. It's what is right. It's what is true and what is not true. It's what is the right way to be. Even though you can have people pushing you to do the other way, you can have the other side pushing you to do the opposite. Nevertheless, you do what is right. You do what is important. You do what your mission is supposed to be. And don't forget that mission. And that's the beauty we learn from the bee, ultimately. That even though that we live in a world of good and bad, and we live in a world where we look to gain and not to lose, but ultimately we have a God and we have a Torah, what's true. And as Jews, we should be a little bit like the bees, learn from the bees and do what is true.
So do you know what the bees do with the honey if stupid humans don't come and take it away from them? What do the bees do with the honey?
I have no idea, but that's not a bee. We didn't have a bee class. I wish you all a wonderful day, and God bless you all.
We don't even know what they would
Thank
do.
you, Rabbi. Thank you.
I don't know what